anyone who doesn't know, why should they listen to this podcast?
Because it's a raw story of truth. One night, I had a knock on my door, right? My aunties came in and she goes, Cordell, there's some people outside asking for you. I had a funny feeling when she said that, right? So then I went outside, 2 guys with balaclavas and masks on.
Stop it.
They're screaming at me saying, like, where's your money? Are these guys going to stab me? Are they going to shoot me? It was a real sign of you need to separate yourself to elevate yourself. Who's my audience, right? Like, who do I relate to the most? And for me at that time, it was young people in school. I decided that's what I was going to do, and I started to build workshops and motivational assemblies on mindset and purpose and stuff like that. I'm going to schools and deliver them. I've gone from one of the most deprived areas in Birmingham to standing on the stage at St James's Palace, getting an award as an award-winning changemaker from King Charles himself. You know, I had news and newspapers write about me, right? Richard Branson sent me a letter of encouragement. Idris Elba has said, you know, an inspiring person that I look at these days is Cordell Jeffers, like from Idris Elba. Lionel Richie interviewed me. Like, come on. In the words of Conor Ben, put that in your pipe and smoke it.
You've built yourself back up. You are an inspiration to others, and keep doing the work because we need it. Okay, Cordell. Welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
For anyone who doesn't know, why should they listen to this podcast?
People should listen to this podcast because it's a raw story of truth, a raw story of somebody that's turned hardship and pain into purpose. Somebody that's turned their purpose into a mission, and somebody that wants to help the world, help serve in terms of helping people find their true self, their true identity, their purpose, and how can they then use that purpose to serve other people. And most importantly, as a public speaking coach and an inspirational speaker, I love to help people understand what their stories are, to share them as well. So this is going to be a raw story. There's no filters here. Like, we try to talk as real as possible, and yeah, that's why
this is the thing. You are the real deal. So you haven't had it easy. You've had to graft and scrape and scratch and fight your way through.
Yeah.
And you've come through so much so that you're then hanging out with King Charles. We can say that.
Yeah.
We can literally say that. That is mega success.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I've been awarded by the King of England, King Charles, rubbed shoulders with many, you know, what people would call celebrities, famous people, being co-signed, and, you know, by people like Idris Elba, you know, Richard Branson. Yeah,
That's
so
right.
I've done some great things.
You've done some great things. You've helped lots and lots of people. So that's the thing. You're not just hanging out with them for no reason.
Yeah, no, of course.
It's through your work.
Yeah, it's through my work. It's through sharing my story and sharing my adversities and just being a real person, right? Like, I feel like in this world, especially with social media, people try to put a mask on, right? Because we want to show perfection. We want to show our best self.
Yeah.
But when you share your truth, when you share the vulnerable parts of you, those emotional scars, but when you can show people how you've overcome that and how you've been able to overcome and use that as a driving force for your own life, when you can share that, you know, people will come.
It's tough though.
Yeah, no, it is.
It's tough.
No, it is. It's definitely tough. But I always say, right, your vibe will create your tribe, right? And you just need to be able to share your truth. Right? Don't try to fit in with everyone else. Don't try to polish everything. Don't try to make your Instagram or your personal brand look so polished, right? Because actually that creates a disconnect from the real people, right? People want to see where you're at. And in order to connect with people, you have to meet them where they are, right? So show people that you was either just like them or you are where they are, and let them come on that journey with you. And that's what I've done as a speaker, as someone that's been building my journey. I'm not perfect. You know, I'm still not where I dream to be, but I'm building every single day, and I share that, and I share my hardships with people, and I've been able to create a community and create some amazing opportunities for myself, to the point where I've gone from one of the most deprived areas in Birmingham to standing on the stage at St. James's Palace, getting an award as an award-winning changemaker from King Charles himself, right? So just be real.
I detect the northern accent, so we're gonna go into that. But yeah, it's, you know, on the podcast we've got all kinds of people, and you know, lots of them have got great success and things. And I do want to tap into the mindset and go, well, what did you do? How did you do this? And I want to hear from people that have done stuff and moved the dial for themselves, you know, that they've taken control of their life, which might not have been in control, and made a difference for themselves first and foremost, because you had to do that. You had to actively work on yourself to come out of that. And the podcast is about everyone learning that they can take control of their life and they can do something about it. We don't have to stay in that position. We have the power over our own destinies. We're the authors of our own books. And we can do it. Right, we're going to step into your story. Okay. All right. Let's go back. You're a baby. Where are you born?
So I was born in Birmingham. Born in Birmingham, which is, again, amazing place. Very diverse, right? You've got every single culture, every single nationality. And, you know, school was good in
Where
terms
are you living?
of... Where was I living? So I was living at home. Mum was a single parent to a certain point, right? So my dad and my mum they were together. Bit of a situation, you know. If you can read between the lines, read it between the lines. It might not have been.
So there was a situation. When the situation occurred, how old were you? Situation.
So I was born into a situation.
Oh, you were born into it.
Where my mum and dad, you know, they might have not been, should have been doing what they was doing, right? They might not have, should have had that relationship that they was having, right? But my dad was there for like the first, 7 years of my life. He had to leave when I was like 7 years old, right? He had to leave. He moved to America for some reasons.
Did you feel the strain of that relationship at that young age, or not, or wasn't it too bad?
I was always kind of prepared for it, because my mum always said, listen, like, you know, one day that your dad's gonna have to
There's a chance.
go back to America, right? Okay. So she kind of prepared me for it.
Mm-hmm.
However, you can't never really prepare for that, right? You got somebody such a great connection in your life, and then they leave, right? Maybe, obviously back then, when you're a kid, you don't really tap into your emotions as much, right? So you don't know what's going on. You might be confused. Well, where's dad now? Why is he gone? You know, you don't really understand it. So you might grieve in different ways, and that might come out in that. I think that was coming out possibly within behavior, and not behavior at the time of 7, 8, 9 years old, but in my kind of later years when I went to school, right?
Yeah.
So things started to kind of change.
Yeah. Because I remember in primary school hearing about like kids, you know, in the classroom, their parents would get divorced and things, and you hear that word divorce, and I was very fearful of it. I remember as a primary school kid, and whenever I saw my parents argue, I'd be thinking, oh no, do not, you know, and I would ask them, are you going to get divorced? Are you going to? But that fear, like, you know, I mean, I definitely had that as a kid. I didn't want, like, no kid wants their parents to break up. That's all you know.
You don't. And obviously, as you know, a dad and a boy's son, right? Like, looked up to my dad a lot, and it was unfortunate, but it was a situation that had to happen, was going to happen. My mum kind of prepped me for it. It more affected my little brother. I had 7 years with my dad, right? Like, so up until he left. And my dad's still in my life now. Like, we phone each other every week. We speak.
Nice.
He still lives in America. He's travelled down once or twice since then. You know, it's not ideal. Like, he's not like in my life in terms of he's here physically, and he hasn't been since I've been 7, realistically, right? But we still have a close bond, but more through, you know, the technology of your phone and social media and FaceTime. Now, it affected my brother a lot more, because he was like, when my dad moved to America, my brother was just born, right? So my mum literally was pregnant as she moved.
He
as
didn't
he moved.
have, yeah, so he didn't
And
have that.
when he moved, he didn't even know my mum was going to have another child. So my mum told him the news when he was in America, right? So there was that as well, right?
Yeah.
So my brother my brother grew up without a dad, basically. You know, he didn't even get to have any of those years, you know.
Okay. And I mean, so how's home life? Your dad goes, and so your mum's looking after you. 2 boys?
Yeah, two boys. Listen, my mum, we've got a good family network. Like, so back then, you know, my granddad was around. Obviously, they're passed now. My granddad, my nan, they were around. So there was a strong family unit. We were very small, very knitted, but very close family. So that, you know, that's always good to have. You know, got cousins and stuff like that. But my mum, you know, in the years, she always let me know, listen, this was a situation we was in. Dad's moved on. Don't ever, you know, hate him for that, or don't ever.
Oh, that's good.
So she always primed me for that. So I never had that. So I always kept a good relationship with my dad. She continued as a single mum, and she worked extremely hard. She went to university. She got a degree still. She worked, you know, 2 jobs, you know, to provide. My mum was a go-getter. She was someone that had a mission, and she would try to complete it, right? We all have different levels of generations, right? Like, my grandparents came over from the Caribbean. They came on, you know, literally the Windrush. They came on a ship over to the UK, right? Got into factory work, built a stable foundation, built a family, and then my mum took it to the next level where she got into university, and then, you know, got into a good position within the community youth work sector. And then for me, it was just like, okay, how do I push that next level, right?
Yeah, of course.
They might not have been millionaires, but they used what they had and they worked what they had. And then it's just for me to now take that to the next level. And then, you know, God willing, my daughter, she takes it to another level. So that's how it's kind of worked from my family's came from ground up, right?
So you've got a pretty, to this point, it's still pretty stable, and your mum's looking after you, and she's working very hard to as a single mum.
Stable.
With these 2 boys.
Yeah. So. Stable in the sense of my mum was stable. She worked hard. It was, and family helped out as well, right? So she was coping. My mum's a very positive person. Very, you know, she doesn't let much get her down. So yeah, she worked hard, and it was just the norm now. Like, I just had to continue.
So why are you hesitating when I say stable to an extent? What's the
stable to an extent of I don't come from any kind of, I don't come from a background where there was any sort of wealth, any sort of, you know, fancy stuff, you know, just the basics, the necessities, but they were provided. And most importantly, my mum gave love, tough love, but love, you know, like tough love, but definitely a lot of love. And she was always reading. She was always trying to upskill herself with qualification. So I saw all of that. So getting that in my subconscious as a youngster has obviously helped me now.
Do you know what? Like, I have, I really like hearing people's backgrounds, and I love hearing about their parents, and especially about the mums. And, you know, like loads of, like I said, lots of really successful and amazing people have sat on this sofa opposite me. I'm very lucky in that way. Yeah. And you know what? It's always their mum.
Yeah.
It's the mums. Yeah. You know, a massive shout out to the mums of this world.
Massive shout out to the mums.
Massive shout out.
Well, if it's not for the mums, we wouldn't be here, would we?
The mums are.
Yeah. And they're
the best.
And they protect.
They're lionesses. They're good. They look after their young.
And as a boy,
that's
all you want to do for your mum, right? You just want to protect her, right? So yeah, you know,
it's always the mums behind whoever's sitting here. It's the mums that have given them that as a kid, that there's something in their brain. Yeah. And I especially like the stricter mums.
Yeah. My mum she wasn't like.
I like those.
My mum came from a strict background, right? Like a Caribbean background. Yeah. Like it was strict discipline,
I
right?
Like it. Yeah.
My mum
work hard, you know.
Yeah, of course. My mum kind of, she had discipline as well, so she instilled that into me. Like we couldn't mess around. Like my mum, she gives you the look. You know what time it is. You sit down and you just keep quiet, right? You know, she wasn't scared to take the slipper out, right? Like you might get a whack around the ear, right? But it never harmed me. No, it never harmed me.
Okay.
Like in this day and age, you can't obviously do those things, right?
So Up till that, so primary school, you know, your dad goes, you're 7, that's really sad, and you feel it, you can feel that
Yeah, I can
loss.
feel it.
And your mum's doing this and she's working and you're getting older. Take us through to high school.
Yeah. So in that time, the reason why I was able to kind of get through that as well, because I was modeling my mum, right? Like, people always say model success, right? So I was modeling what my mum was doing in terms of she was staying resilient. I know how much my mum and my dad were close, and obviously there was a bit of a separation there. So seeing my mum push through, I just modeled what she was doing. Okay, well, I've got to push through too, right?
Yeah.
So that's how we kind of got through that stage. So secondary school now was a different ball game, right?
Can we say what school you went to?
Yeah,
just describe it to us, maybe.
Yeah, it was called International at the time. It's now called Tilcross Academy. Again, very diverse school, right? My mum wanted me to go to a better school, right?
Mm-hmm.
But because of the catchment areas and things like that, I wasn't able to get into the one that I tried to get into, and so I went to Tilcross Academy.
So was this more sort of considered rough, or was it more? Why wasn't it a better school? What was wrong with it?
Just, you know, you've got those kind of your grammar-y type schools, right?
Okay.
And listen, I probably wasn't at the time smart enough to get into them schools anyway. But I went to this school, Tilcross Academy. Was it rough? It was a challenge. That's all I could say. Yeah, from the get-go, because you had people from all different areas, from a lot of deprived areas, all going to one school, right? And there was a mix of people, which was good. So, you know, we had every single nationality, which was good. So I was always able to connect with people from different backgrounds. But school for me was a challenge. Now, at the time, I didn't realise. I learned a little bit later on in life that I'm dyslexic. So I was already struggling in the domain of trying to catch up in education. And also I was around circles where you mess around, right? You're coming out of classroom. I kind of rebelled against the school system, right, very early on, because I had a teacher, and it's so funny. I was saying this to my friend the other day. I had a teacher called Mr. Golden, and Mr. Golden, if you're watching this, I'm sorry, mate, but Mr. Golden was the worst teacher you could be introduced to in school. Like he actually had I actually think he wasn't all there, right? And the reason why I say that is because he used to have outbursts of rage. He used to throw cups across.
He threw cups at you.
He would throw cups like he would throw them above you so they don't hit you, but it was such a he ended up getting sacked because he had a fight with one of the students, right?
Yeah.
But like that introduction into secondary school was just, it was awful, right? And
no, that's not normal.
Yeah, and plus, so there was that. I struggled, and then I might not have, you know, I was not in necessarily the right kind of circle of friends.
So what circle was it?
More the cool kids, right? Like we just kind of we make up our own rules, right, for the school. So I kind of got into that kind of circle where it was a little bit more not taking it serious, not taking education serious.
So what are you doing at this point?
So we're tuning. We're not in class most of the time. We're
skipping school. My problem more than anything was teachers just didn't like that I always had an answer. Okay, so I had an answer for everything. So I would question. Cheeky. Yeah.
I was cheeky, but I used to question everything more than anything. So, you know, like if you're telling me 2 + 2 = 4, I just want to know. Okay, so how? Like, where's the root of that? Like, just an example. I'm always asking why, how did you learn that? Like, where did you get that from? And teachers were just like, that's just how it is. And then I was like, but okay, so you've just read this from a book, right? So I'm just trying to always ask questions,
that's a dangerous territory.
And then it was just like, they was just like, okay, you're disrupting the class, get out, right?
But let me just ask, were you deliberately, because you know, like Nico Milano and those guys, when they do these videos where they're sitting with like, they get these people in a room and they deliberately rage bait them, and it's like, and they go, no, the world is flat, and then they're doing it as a joke. Were you doing it as a joke, or were you doing genuinely curious and asking them like, come on, hey?
I would do it generally curiously at first, but teachers get triggered, right?
Yeah, they
get triggered. So then it's like, it's my way or the highway. This is it. Don't say anything. So they got
annoyed with you.
So then they would get annoyed with me, and then I'm rage baiting. Then my reaction is rage baiting, right? Okay. So, and then because you know, I'm quite a good debater at the time. You know, I'm a good debater. But actually, what I believe the teacher should have done then is see a skill in me, right? He's inquisitive, he's curious, right? That's what we want. We want curious children, because they're curious children are the leaders of the world, right? Being curiosity is an important mind frame to have. Always ask questions, understand the first principle, understand your disciplines. And the teachers, they just see me as somebody that was too mouthy, too chatty, get out of the classroom. And I literally
and that wasn't helping you.
It wasn't helping me, because then I spent most of my time either in detention or isolation, right? And I just felt suppressed. So then the more that they would do that, the more I would rebel against the system.
So it's a vicious circle, because the teachers also, they get together with their, and I've heard about the insights of teachers, and they sort of get together in their teacher room and they're having their tea on the biscuits and they're talking about it, and then they go, that kid is doing this and that.
Yeah.
And then you get that like stamp.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's like they watch you. So even if you didn't mean anything, because they think you're like that, they're going to interpret it like that.
That's it, right? It's funny, because I used to get kicked out of school for talking. Now I get paid a lot of money to talk,
you get
right?
paid to talk.
So it's great. But this is what I'm saying. When you see skills in young people, instead of suppressing them, nurture them, right? If don't keep me out of the class because you think I'm the one that's the ringleader of the class or disrupting. See me as someone that could be influential. So get me on side and give me some more responsibility so I can lead my peers and lead the class, right? But they're not thinking like that. They're just, okay, we need to just remove you. And that's not the answer.
No.
Like, you've got to nurture this skill.
Oh gosh, the teacher's so important.
Yeah, like if I'm talking or, I'm debating, like, can't you see me? Okay, there's a future lawyer there. There's a future politician. There's a speaker within this child. Like, let's nurture that. He's curious. He might be expressing it in the wrong way, but we can definitely nurture this into talent. But to be fair with the school system and the teachers that are there, they're under pressure. Right? They just care about results. It's just like, we got to get results Ofsted and all these things, right? So that's their focus. But it would be good if teachers could have that time to nurture children, because there's so many young children and talented kids inside the classroom that might have disabilities, like being dyslexic or whatever it may be, but that's their superpower. Can we nurture it? Can we help these guys become future leaders? And I just don't think school gives the teachers the time to want to do that.
Yeah, they are under a lot of pressure, and
they're under pressure.
It's tough. It's tough. And some schools are better than others, and some schools are lucky enough to have these amazing teachers.
Yeah.
That seek out these kids and help them. And,
yeah.
But it's tough. So you got like in a spiral, and you got sucked into this thing, and you didn't like school, and you were fighting the school.
Yeah,
the school was fighting you.
Yeah, I ended up rebelling against the school system, and then eventually.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, I got called to my head teacher's office, right? His name was Mr. Golden. And I was thinking, okay, what have I got? What am I in trouble for again?
Before you tell me, what was the straw that broke the camel's back?
For me, it was loads of little things over years that just was just like, this.
So a teacher probably complained and just
teachers were complaining, like they're fed up with me, right? And they probably could see some potential in me, but I'm rebelling against the system because this system, this hat that they was trying to fit on me did not fit, right? And I knew that, and I was fighting against it.
Okay.
And then obviously I'm dyslexic as well, so like I was struggling also, right? So after loads of messing around, like in terms of like fights and getting kicked out of classrooms and being cheeky and all these little things, detentions, isolations, I think it came to a point where they was like, okay, enough is enough. So I got called to the head teacher's office, Mr. Golden.
No.
And I'm sitting down.
Oh no.
He had a nice big wooden table. He had all awards for the school, or plaques behind him.
Yeah.
And I never forget, it was a cold early December. And I'm in the office. The office is freezing. It's freezing cold, literally. He always had it cold. I don't know why. I think it was cold-blooded, right? Literally, you could breathe out the condensation, right? And he sat me down and he goes, Cordell, he goes, I want you to open this letter in front of me. And he put the letter and he passed it across the table, right? And I've opened the letter. I'm thinking, okay, what's this? Another suspension, because I would always get suspended from school as well, like 2 weeks here, 1 week here. And I opened it, and this time in big bold letters across the top it said permanent exclusion. Wow. And in that moment I thought, bloody hell, like I didn't really like, I kind of had the attitude like, whatever, but I was quite scared of what my mom was going to say at this point, right?
That was the number one.
That was the number one. Now listen,
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. My mum in school, she tried her hardest to defend me until it got a bit too bad. Like she would defend me. She was like, "You're not kicking my kid out of school. I'm going to get lawyers." Like she was that kind of mum. Like she'd be like, "My son's this." Like she loved me, right? But she got to a point where she was just like, called out, like you're taking the mick and you're embarrassing me because I'm trying to fight your case, but
there's only so much.
There's only so much that she can do.
There's only so much you can do.
So I got permanently excluded, and I'll never forget, what am I going to say to my mum? What am I going to say to my mum? And Mr. Hotwass said, he said, "Sorry, Cordell, you've been permanently excluded. We cannot have your behaviour and the way you're acting in our school system no longer." He goes, "We can try sort you a managed move or look for other schools for you, but within this school system, there's no more chances for you," right?
Oh, God.
And I thought, I had a tear in my eye because I was like, well, I didn't know whether that tear was coming from him because he had bad breath. Like, I'll be honest with you, like he was literally breathing in my face. I never forget, and he just had the permanent coffee breath all the time, right?
Yeah, okay.
But also, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, my mum, right? That's what I'm thinking. What am I going to tell her? She's been working so hard, 2 jobs, going to uni, always saying, "Cordell, make sure you get your education. Please do it," right? So I felt like I felt a sense of
duty,
embarrassment.
Oh,
I felt a sense of duty to get it,
your
but I felt a sense of embarrassment to my mum and a sense of failure that I'm going to let her down, right? And that was when it all came to like, okay, Cordell, something has to change.
Oh.
So I'll never forget, on that day on that school bus, going home, and I've got home, and listen, I was thinking they might have told my mum before I've even got there, so I had to step a bit different, right? Don't forget, my mum, she was strict, right? She was small, but honestly, she was very strict, right? And if she pulls out that slipper, you know what time it is, right? And I never forget, I've opened up the door, I've looked left, I've gone into the hallway, I've looked left, I've looked up the stairs, trying to figure out where she is. And then I could hear that she was in the living room, right?
Oh,
so then...
Gosh, I'm scared for you.
Yeah.
I'm scared for you.
So I thought, let me just try run upstairs, go to my room, right? So I tried to run up the stairs, and then I hear, "Cordell, can you please come down here, please, son?" So I've gone downstairs, and then she goes, "Cordell, she was sitting down on the sofa. She goes, "Do you have anything to tell me?" And I said, "No, I don't." I said,
okay.
I said, "Yeah." I said, the sun's shining a little bit outside. Have you seen the weather?" She goes, "Cordell, do you have anything to tell me?" And then when you could hear that tone of voice, you hear that tonality, and you're like, okay, she's serious now. And I knew she had known at this point. So I said, "Mom, I'm sorry. Like, I've let you down. Like, I know how hard you work. I know that education is an important thing, and I've been kicked out of school." And she turned around and she gave me the most confusing reaction I've ever had. She smiled at me and she goes, "Don't worry, son." Now, I'm thinking, is this woman on happy pills or something? Like, what is going on today? Like, what do you mean, don't worry? And she goes, "Because I've got a better solution for you." I said, "Okay, what's that?" Because normally I'm getting a smack or something, right? So she had this smile in her face, and she goes, "I've got a better solution for you." She goes, "I'm going to send you to live with your grandparents in the Caribbean, and you're going to go to school over there. You've ruined your opportunity here. You're going to go over there and you're going to learn how it's done."
The thing is, as a mum, you're not going to break your child. You're not going to, they're already being kicked. You've read that you've been excluded. That's a horrible thing to read. Yeah. It's like, that's us. You're not part of the club. So you've been kicked out. You've got to deal with rejection here. And you're her baby, and she doesn't want you to be rejected. But at the same time, she's got to protect you. You're spiraling in a bad situation. And she realized that there was no hope. And they said, "There's no more hope for you." So she's doing the best thing that she can do as a mum and take you out of an environment that was actually toxic for you. Yeah.
But I didn't realize that. I'm the cool kid. I've got my first girlfriend and stuff like that. I don't want to be taking out my environment to go to the Caribbean. Now, for most people that are watching, the Caribbean, obviously beautiful, gorgeous place, right? The palm trees, the pina coladas, the beach, the ocean. It's beautiful, right? The cruise ships.
Yeah, I love the Caribbean.
The part of the when I went to the Caribbean, it was a small island called St. Kitts and Nevis, and beautiful, gorgeous island, one of the best islands in the world. I love it. However, though, where I went to school and living with my grandparents, it's a bit different when you're living there in within and amongst certain the communities. There's There's not a lot of resource. You know.
Okay, so let's just frame this. So then
Okay.
your brother stays with your mum and in Birmingham.
No. So my mum sends. My mum came to the Caribbean as well. So she came with me.
Okay, she takes
with
you
my brother.
Okay, so all of you go.
So we all go.
Okay.
Right. And let me take you a bit before that. So when my mum told me that, I said okay. And I just thought in my head, I ain't going. Like that, my mind is, there's no way I'm leaving my environment to go to the Caribbean, right? And the reason why is because, you know, everything I knew was here. And I used to travel to my grandparents over the summer in you know, to the island of St. Kitts and Nevis, and it was overly strict. Like, I don't want to go there. Like, no way. Like, to live with Dad and Granddad,
strict.
it's another level of strict, right? So I done everything I could not to go. I hid my passports. And I hid my passport. My mum, I'll never forget the day my mum was literally turning upside the house and she's like, have you hid this passport, Cordell? Where is it? And I just said, no, I haven't. Okay. So once she found it and she found where it was and stuff like that, and I had to own up to it, obviously I got a bit of a beating for that, as you do at the times. You know, I got a bit of a smack for that back in them times. But, you know, my family didn't want me to go either. They didn't think it was a good decision, right? So my friends and my family, they tried everything to not make me go. So they made it very hard for my mum. But my mum she's very strong-headed, and she thought this was going to be what
was best for you.
She thought she said, this is my son and this is what's best for me. Yeah. And as much as we tried to fight it, right up until the last minute of going, I mean, everybody tried to fight it, you know, because nobody wanted me to leave. I was a loved person, right? But you know, I left. And I cried. I literally cried all the way from... And
she came with you to...
Yeah. Okay. I cried all the way.
Okay. And then you land up and you're there on the strict island. Yes, it's nice. There's beaches, but it's strict. How is it strict?
When I say strict, my grandparents were very strict. So...
Like more strict than your mum?
Oh, my mum was nothing compared to my grandparents. Oh. But they're strict, right? Like they come from a time where, you know, there was no messing around. Like... Children didn't have an opinion. If you open your mouth, like, you're in trouble, right? You can't have an opinions back then. So that was the kind of, you know, the discipline that they had. So that's what they believed is how, you know, you teach young people. But over there was, when I say that, there was a lack of resources in terms of, it wasn't like how England is, right? Built up, loads of opportunities. There wasn't that. And that's what my mum wanted me to see. She wanted me to be in a place where there's not much resources, but the people there are very resourceful. And actually, that is such an important skill to have. You know, being able to have maybe not as much resources as you would like, but still be resourceful with what you have, right? Use what you've got. And that's what I've seen people over there. They would have shack houses, right? They'd come out of shack houses, but you know, they wouldn't have much, but the kids might be in poverty. But the one thing that they did have was their education. And they would really strive hard to get that because that was their only dream. They never had options, right? So everybody was working towards that goal. So seeing the kids out there, like, really be resourceful with what they had. And even the way I seen them make money and stuff like that, there wasn't a lot of opportunities, but they'd go to the beaches and sell things to the tourists and items. And just seeing that was a massive... kind of mindset shift. And going to school there, it wasn't a big school. They never had all the computers like what I'm used to and all the iPads and all that stuff, right? A lot of the times the classrooms were underneath a tree, right? Like that was the level of raw and realness that was there. Teachers back then in my time, like 16, 18 years ago, however long ago it is now, they were still giving you the cane as well. So you'd still get beat with a cane.
Okay, yeah. So the Cordell from the school in Birmingham misbehaving and talking back, and are you doing that are you trying it on a little bit? Not really. I didn't try it on because I was quite, you know, I was in a whole new environment, you know, the new people, new everything. So I was definitely tempted. And I was definitely humbled, right? I was humbled. So I tried to fit in, but did I get beat? Yes, I did. By who? By Mr. Glasgow, my head teacher. And listen, they're not like over there. The head teachers look like army generals, right? Like they're 6 foot beefy guys, right? So you're respecting. So yeah, you have to respect, and that is. I like it. They told me, listen, they told me from the get go. Listen, we've seen your school report.
We see what you've done over there in England, and you messing around. She said that would not be tolerated in our school system, in our education system here. You have to respect our values, and that was set from the beginning. But the reason why I actually got in trouble with the head teacher is because I kept wearing things that he didn't want on my uniform. Like I'd wear earrings, or I might have my hat on in school or something like that, and eventually I got beat. And could you actually imagine that over here in the UK, where I'm giving back chat and I'm speaking, I'm getting sent out of classrooms, and that to going over there and getting beat for your school uniform,
no, it's crazy.
It was crazy.
It's crazy.
And when that happened, listen, when I'm telling you my uniform was pressed, ironed every morning after that beating. Right? It was.
Well, you got to respect your uniform. That's the thing. I like the schools where you have to respect the uniform. You need to wear it, not the skirt up to there. The skirt has to be 4 fingers above the thing.
Yeah.
No thousands of earrings and the hair loose, spreading lice around the school. I'm sorry, it's school. You have to respect your uniform. I went to school in South Africa and the same. I remember the guys used to get beaten with a cricket bat.
Bloody hell,
and they would write their names on everyone that got a lashing. They used to bend over and pop, pop, pop. And the girls, I had it on my hands. They take a little whip.
Yeah.
It's
but they used to do it.
They would never do it now.
They used to do it back in the day in England, right? My mum and stuff like that said that you'd get a bit of a beating, right? And you couldn't go home to tell your mum or dad that you'd get beaten back then, because you'd get another beating, right? But we're in a different world. And a lot of people might be listening to this thinking that's wrong, and that's fine. I don't believe in that now. I definitely don't believe in it now, because there's better ways. But
that's how it was.
But that's how it was,
that
right?
That is the real,
That's the real. And I'll be honest, that's shaped me. But after getting that beating, obviously, I thought, this is too strict for me. I'm going to have to just listen to what he's saying and fit in and make sure that I've got everything right. Don't get me wrong, I still struggled in school over there, because I thought, okay, obviously the education system in England is valued all around the world, right? But I'm telling you, the kids over there were super smart. They are so intelligent. They were miles ahead of students here. So it felt like I was even dumber at the time, right? Because I'm like, these kids are way too smart for me. But whilst I was there, my mindset shifted. I had a paradigm shift while I was there, because I saw kids with nothing still make something for themselves. They were striving, they were determined, right? When they're going to sell things to the tourists and make that bit of money, and I'm like, oh, let's go to town and let's spend it. No, they've got to go back home and put that money on the table so that they can have food for the household. Seeing that discipline, seeing that in that raw form shifted my mindset completely, and that made me realize I had so much opportunity in the UK. I had so much things around me, and I needed to make sure when I get back there to the UK, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to take every opportunity.
Is that what you were thinking? You were thinking when I go back there, I'm going to make more of it, appreciating it?
Yeah, after being there for 6, 7, 8 months, I was just like, I need to get back to the UK and I need to make a difference, because actually I had everything, and actually I was messing around in school, and I should have took it serious, because these kids have nothing. When I say nothing, I mean nothing. But these kids are still going to school, turning up, doing what they have to do. And that just shifted me, When you get taken, and that's why at the start, I absolutely did dislike my mum for it. I proper disliked my mum for taking me, right? I did not want to go. No one wants to go at that, when you're at that age. However, as time went on, I realised that was the best thing that she could have done. Taking me out of my environment. And I think if anyone has an opportunity to take their kid out that might be struggling with kids that are might not be appreciating, might be ungrateful, we have children in this day and age. We try to give them and provide them everything, right? And then sometimes they might turn a little bit ungrateful or whatnot. If you have an opportunity to take them out of their environment and show them a different world where people have got nothing but they're still striving, do that, because it will change their mind. And I lived around it.
Is everything.
Environment is everything, and it definitely shifted my mindset. And then
if you think about even in nature, and you think about the temperature of water, and certain fish like that colder water, and then you've got the tropical fish, and they like a different type of temperature, and then the plants will grow in this one, but they won't grow in the other one, and this one has a higher pH.
But that's it,
and that
right?
one doesn't. We all have our different
things.
things.
We have different environments, and you have to know what environment. Like a mango tree can't grow in England, can it?
No,
Right? It
yeah,
needs
yeah.
the sun. It needs certain,
Yeah.
elements of, the,
Yeah.
the Caribbean soil, or the African soil, for example. So environment is key.
It's
Right?
important. Yeah.
And I say that as well. Like, my mum took me outside my friendship group. She took me away from everything that I was known, that I was comfortable with, and I was forced to grow. I was literally forced to grow.
Credit to your mum.
Yeah, credit to my mum. And
Good.
it showed me the lesson of change is necessary, change is growth. And if you can get out of your environment that you're in, if you're in an environment that might be toxic, abusive, or, it's not inspiring, take yourself out of that environment and fit yourself in places that's going to force you to grow. Where there's more inspiring people, more successful people than you, because that's going to help you level up, right? And that early intervention, that early lesson gave me that school of thought.
Yeah. Yeah. And I almost think that because you resisted it that much, it was really bad for you. You weren't thriving. Like, that's a fact. You weren't thriving there. And because you resisted it that much, that almost showed you how much you needed it. The more you resisted it, and it being that bad for you, showed you just how much more you needed that thing.
Just how much more I needed it.
Yeah.
And I always say, right, like, if you put a shark in a fish tank, it doesn't grow to become the shark, an 8-foot shark, right? It grows there a couple of inches. But if you put the shark in its natural environment in the ocean, it grows 8 foot or more, right? Your environment is key. So that was the message that I had from that, and that I love to share it to everyone else.
That's beautiful.
Get yourself outside your comfort zone. Go into environments that force you to grow.
Okay, and then so you did that. You did your school there, and then what?
So yeah, I'd done some school there, and then I decided after being there for a year and a half, I sat my mum down, and my mum could see the change with me. I'm walking different. I'm a little different. I'm more respectful in certain things that I'm doing. Not that I was never disrespectful, but respectful for everything around me, right? Like at school, inside the household, my mum could see. Yeah, there's a shift, and she could see it. And I sat her down and I said, "Mum, listen, I want to go back to the UK. I want to, can I go back?" Right? And at first she was kind of opposing the idea, because she had to stay actually at this point, because my grandparents were getting old. She wanted to stay to look after them. And she had already built, while she was there for a year and a half, she had built a bit of a career over there as well as a school guidance counsellor, working in the schools, right?
Nice, yeah.
And my brother was in school and stuff. But I wanted to get back, like, because don't forget, my brother's only like 7 years old. I'm like 14, 15 now.
Okay, you're still young.
Yeah, so I'm still young, but I've got a little bit of my own kind of, like perspectives and things that I want to do. And she decided that she would send me back to live with my auntie Angela. And my auntie Angela took me in, but I'll never forget the day when I was leaving the Caribbean, and my mum was at the airport, and she hugged me, and as she hugged me, she was crying, and my brother was holding me crying, right? And my mum was just like, "Be careful, son," and my brother was like, "Please just don't leave me," right? And it was a hard decision to be out at 15 to leave my mum, to leave my little brother. I don't have my dad around, don't forget, right? But
also she's worried about you because you're going back.
Because I'm going back. Yeah, and she doesn't want me to...
She knows what happened before.
Yeah, she knows what happened before. But that decision that she made and that I made, it turned me from a boy into a man. And as I was going through that airport and looking back at my mum, I realised, you know what, that's my reason why. I'm going to do everything in my power to make this woman proud of me.
Yeah,
and
good.
honestly, look, going through them departure gates and just that picture that I have in my mum in when I was leaving, I said to myself, yeah, that's it. Like, I'm going to do everything that I can. And yeah, I came back to the UK. And that's what you have to have as well, right? You have to have a strong reason why. When you go on a mission in any sort, you have to have a strong reason why. If you've got a purpose or you're building something, if your reason why is not big enough, if it's not bigger than your excuses, you're never going to complete or achieve what you want to do.
Yeah.
So that was my reason why, and I carried that through.
So Auntie Angela, she's really nice to take you in after knowing that you were a bit of a trouble causer as well.
No, my Auntie Angela, she loved me.
She loved you.
Yeah,
okay,
she loved me. She's got a soft spot for me. I love my Auntie Angela.
Good. So she opens the door and she's like, "Come in, live here."
Yeah, she opened up the door. She came in. She lived in an area called Nechells in Birmingham. Very lovely home. lovely house, lovely, you know, I come from a good family, but the area wasn't the best, right? Like the environment outside of there wasn't the best, right? So
Why?
It was it's a deprived area. There's no resource there. Crime, drugs, guns,
So
gangs, you know, and my friends now, don't forget, I've been away for a while now, right? So my friends have gone from messing around in the playground to now more serious things, right?
No.
More crimes. They're in gangs and stuff now, right? And I've had that year and a half out. So I didn't really get too sucked into that.
You would have been,
but I
so
would have though,
in.
right? Imagine I didn't go. I would have been so sucked in.
Yeah.
But I've came back here with a whole new mindset, right? So now I'm thinking, how do I take everything I've learned in the Caribbean?
You're vulnerable though.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But I had a bit of a stronger mindset because, listen, getting that beating from Mr. Glasgow, I'd rather like go to prison than get that. Like I didn't want to get that again. So I was just like, I don't want to get sent back, right? So I want to just, this is my last chance. I've got to make it work. But the struggle and the conflict was, how do I take everything I've just learned in the Caribbean, the values, the mindset, the paradigm shifts, how do I take that and apply it in an environment that just don't support it, right? Because now everybody around me is, that they're on a different path than that I want to be on. So that was a struggle. But I got into reading from a teacher. A teacher showed me a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? And I read that as my first book at like 16 years old I was, right now. And that book changed everything for me, and I got into personal development. And I realized, okay, I might be in a bad environment, but I'm not going to be a product of my environment. I'm going to be a product of my mindset, right?
Okay, were they trying to suck you into the gang, the friends? Was it tempting at times?
Obviously, they probably wasn't aware, but I was pulling back a lot, right? So, my partner at the time, well, not at the time, still my partner now, but at the time, she lived out far. So I would always try to go there. I'd try to be away from it as much as I can, right?
Away.
But I saw a lot of stuff whilst, in the times that I was around, and, things happened and people went in and out of jail. There was people that I know doing murders, going to jail for long periods of time. Like, it was really bad, right?
Yeah.
But I never paid no part of it, but at the same time, it was hard because these were people that I always known. These were
your friends.
They were friends, like, and I didn't want to dissociate myself from them, but I couldn't be doing what they was doing. It just didn't fit to my values, right? And it was tough. It was hard, but I'd done everything I could to try to get out of that situation. And actually, I went back to college. I got my qualifications, and I tried my hardest to get out of that as much as possible. But whilst I was reading, that took me away as well. Like, I was just reading. I went from Rich Dad, Poor Dad to Think and Grow Rich, Think and Grow Now, The Secret. And I'm reading these books at 16 years old, right? So my mind's even, I'm just like, no, this isn't my environment.
You're pulling yourself into that world.
Yeah, I'm pulling myself into that world to the point where I'm like, okay, I need to make new friends, right? So where do I make new successful friends or new friends that are doing things? Events, seminars, right? So then I was like, remember I bought like a Primark suit for, I think probably about £20. It was the baggiest suit you'd ever see, right?
Yeah.
But I'd just turn up into this little kid in, like, in these seminar rooms. And that's where my journey kind of started to think about entrepreneurship and all these things. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, okay. So you would drive away, try and get away from the toxic because you knew that it was, it was super. That's another level of toxic. That's as bad as it gets. But then you removed yourself, and then you read, and then you're attending like business seminars and stuff. Yeah,
business seminars, and I'm reading. And listen, I never had no money to invest in anything, but I'm just trying to put myself in a different environment, right? Because like I said, environment is key. And I never forget, I was going to college at the time, and at the time, I don't know if you remember, there was a thing called EMA. It was like a maintenance allowance, right? Okay. So if you're on time, you'd get £30 a week, right? Which is decent. Think about that now. Yeah. I don't even know if they have that now, but you get £30 a week for being on time, having good behaviour, right? Okay. So it was a good incentive.
Oh yeah.
And obviously it was for people from low income backgrounds, right? So obviously I was come from a low income background, so I was qualified to get it. And I saved up all my EMA money. Now listen, the teacher, I was always late, to be fair, but bit of a charmer, right? Like
Yeah,
I could
okay.
charm my way around the teachers.
Okay.
I'd go to my favorite teacher that would sign it off, and you know she'd have a bit of a weak spot for me. And I remember I got a bulk at EMA. I saved it all up, and then I remember one day my cousin came in the house. I lived at my auntie's, so she had a daughter, Nikelia, who's like me and her like this, like my sister, right? And she came in raving about these new boots that she had. She was going crazy, and I was like, well, how much are they? She was like, 250 or something like that. And I was like, well, what are they called? And they were Ugg boots, right? So you remember when the craze of Ugg boots, like 10, 15 years ago, right? And I was like, okay, that's interesting. So then I went online and I typed in Ugg boots, right? And then there was a manufacturer that made real Ugg boots, but also made Ugg boots that were kind of unlicensed as well. So that as completely the exact same boot, but it just didn't have
the
like
brand.
the Ugg on it, right?
Ugg brand.
Yeah, it didn't. It wasn't branded, but it was the same boot. So I was like, okay, maybe if I get them, they were cheap, like really cheap. I was buying them for like what, 20 quid, right? Like for per item. So I brought a bulk of them. I thought, oh, well, I've got some EMA money here. Let me buy them and try sell them, right? And I brought them, and I put them on eBay. And oh my gosh, like I bought like 5, and I just went in like literally probably 2 hours, right? And I was just wow, I've just made myself like 100, like hundreds of pounds, right? Just from because I was selling them, I bought them for 20, I was selling them for £50.
Entrepreneurship, didn't you?
That was my first taste.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, okay, I'm onto something. So I don't need to do what my friends are doing. I don't need to sell drugs or be around that, right? Like I can make a lane like this. So then I've took the money, I reinvested it, and I'm just buying more and more and more. Then I went on to selling GHD hair straighteners as well.
Oh yeah.
Right. So I bought a bulk of them, and then I would knock. And then I was thinking, okay, I was putting them on eBay. eBay took them down because it was like you can't sell this brand, right? Because I was selling them as brand new. They said you can't sell it as brand new. You have to sell them as used or whatever. So I was like, okay. So they took my listing down. So then I went and knocked loads of doors around my area that were hairdressers. So I knocked every hairdresser around like Erdington, Sutton Coldfield and stuff like that, and I got a few people to buy my products. And I was just buying and selling online, and I was making hundreds of pounds a week as a youngster, 16, 17 years old. So I was doing that going to college. But then,
and your outgoing personality helped you because you were selling.
Yeah, well, I learned the outgoing personality from that. So I'm selling. Listen, sales is the most important skill I think everyone should start with, right? If you've got kids, send them to a door-to-door company or some sort of sales company. Get them that raw talent, because you learn how to communicate, you learn how to have to present and talk to people from different backgrounds, and those and number one, it helps you face rejection, right?
Oh, you get humbled again. You get humbled.
Right? And
take all those egos.
That's it. And I never forget that at that time when I was knocking doors,
a lot of rejection,
and I was getting rejection. But then I came home, I typed into Google entrepreneurs that have faced loads of rejection, and it was just like every entrepreneur faces that, right? But then there was a story of Colonel Sanders, KFC, the owner of KFC, and I read that he had the recipe for KFC. Nobody wanted to invest in it, but he knocked 1,009 doors, right? He got rejected. But then on the last door he knocked, what would say it was 1,010. Somebody invested into his recipe, and now we have KFC, right? And he started that at what? I think he was like 66 years old or something like that when he started it. Yeah. That story, my head went after that reading it. I said, okay, I need to. No one cares. Just work harder. Just keep knocking more doors, and that's what I do.
So like the tennis players and like the Novak Djokovic.
Djokovic.
And just any famous sports person. How many times Michael Jordan? How many times have they all missed?
Yes.
How many times, right?
But people don't see that, right?
But it's the thing, you train the ego, you tame and train it, I would almost say, because it's wild and proud.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah, no, of course. No,
you can't reject. And then
no one likes rejection, right?
But then you train it, and it becomes humble, but it also becomes better.
It becomes
a better salesperson, a better communicator.
Yeah,
it's a great lesson to be humbled in that way.
Well, getting that at 16, though, that
it's terrific.
That kind of lack of fear of rejection, because I had at that time I was like, I don't care about getting rejected. Like, that's fine, because every no brings you closer to a yes, right? Like, not more doors. Law of averages. I'm going to get a sale at the end of it. So I knew So I seen rejection as a good thing. Okay, rejected. I'm closer to the yes, right? Like, that's the mind frame that you have when you do door to door and trying to sell a product. And that has definitely played a massive part in my life, just in other areas, you know.
I love that. I love that you're saying that. Yeah, I adore sales, and I believe that we should all be investing more in our comm skills. I agree with you. It's a superpower.
Yeah, it's a superpower.
I think they teach, you know, you go to do these MBAs and things like that, and actually, you know what, like communication skills.
Yeah.
Communication skills 101. Do that.
Communication.
And it'll take you so much further.
Yeah, 100%. Being able to communicate your you know, your value or your ideas in the right ways is the number one, is one of the number one skills.
Okay,
Like,
so you started to tap around in this, you're doing this entrepreneurship and everything. What's next?
yeah. So what happened was, in that time, don't forget, I'm in an area, I'm doing this whilst I'm still in an area that's quite tough and rough, right? And then one night, I had a knock on my door, right? On my auntie's door. It's a bit of a bang. It was a bit of a bang, right? And my auntie's answered the door, and then she came in and she goes, "Cordell, there's some people outside asking for you. They're saying CJ." So people used to call me CJ. My initials Cordell Jeffers, right? Mm-hmm. But I was thinking, it was a bit strange. I had a funny feeling when she said that, because normally she would either let them in because they know me. Not a lot of people knew where my auntie lived, right? Or they would call me by Cordell. They wouldn't say CJ to my auntie, right? They would say Cordell. So I thought, who's that, right? So then I went outside, and as I went outside, I seen people like shifting around, right? And then I've gone around the corner, and then I was, you know, met by two guys with balaclavas and masks on.
Stop it.
Yeah, and you know, they grabbed me, they've kind of put me to the floor, and they're kind of like they're screaming at me saying like, "Where's your money?" Like,
oh no.
Yeah, where's money? What do you have for me? All these kind of things. So much was going on, and obviously, in that moment, I'm thinking, I don't know what these guys have on them. You know, my first thought was, are these guys going to stab me? Are they going to shoot me? I'm in an area where these things happen, right? So it's not far-fetched.
Someone got wind you were making money.
I don't know what they got wind of, right? I still, up to this day, I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it was jealousy. Jealousy was probably the thing, right?
Do you think it was one of your friends?
No, I don't. I do kind of know who it was now. I've got a sense.
Really?
And it was people that I've seen that knew me, that were around my friends, that seen me as a target. They was watching. Yeah, they must have been, right? And I never got involved in any kind of activities like that. So they're probably thinking, well, how is he getting on, and what's he doing? How's he like progressing whilst we're all out here doing what we're doing, right? So yeah, I got attacked, and it was a very scary moment, right? Gosh. Like, imagine a gang of masked people coming to your house, right? And then you know, I by the grace of God, like, I don't know how I ended up, you know, getting away, shifting off. I've got inside, and my auntie saw the people outside, closed the door, and you know, we're pressing against the door. My auntie's saying, she's screaming like, "Go away! I'm going to call the police! I'm going away! I'm going to call the police!" And you know, these guys ran off, like, and you could tell they must have been youngsters as well, right? And in that moment, it was like it was a real sign of, you need to separate yourself fully to elevate yourself. Because I was still around my friends, not a lot. I was on my own path, but I was still around it a little bit, right?
Yeah, they're watching you.
And I became a target. So that made me realize, separate in order to elevate. And I remember that moment depressed me, because you've got to think, I've just came from the Caribbean. I've just come to my auntie's home. She's opened the doors for me to stay there, right? And now I've brought this to her home.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't and I didn't want to do that, right? So it was a tough time. And I never forget, I went into college the next day. No, well, a few days after. And the teacher, because in college, I got on with my teachers. I didn't get on with them in school. But in college is a little different, because in the way you're writing, you can express yourself a little bit more. You know, when you're doing essays, you can have your own perspective on. And that's what I enjoyed.
Lovely,
and that's all I wanted was in school. Like, I want to share my perspective. But in school, it was completely shut down, right? In college, it was a bit more accepted. So I got on with my teachers. And I'll never forget, you know, he just told me, he said, listen, you know, you have diamond and you have coal. He goes, underneath earth, there's a process where, you know, coal goes through an extreme like heat and pressure, and it creates forms and elements of a diamond. He said, pieces of a diamond are elements of coal. right? And he says, right now you're the coal. You're a bit unpolished. You're not polished, but you've got a lot of potential. And he goes, the pressure that you go through, that getting kicked out of school, going to the Caribbean, coming back, trying to do well, people attacking you. He says you can use all of that, and you can create yourself into a diamond. He said pressure creates diamonds. He said remember that.
What a terrific teacher.
Terrific, right? And that literally, again, another significant moment, because I thought I changed my frame. Instead of being depressed, why me? Why have I been attacked? Why did I get targeted? I'm trying to do a good thing. I changed it. I thought, okay, this is a divine intervention. Another one, all right? One was when I went to the Caribbean. This is the second one. This is actually a moment of gratitude. These guys came to your home, but now, I've got to get out of here. And that was my complete thing.
So what did you do?
I worked hard, got all my qualifications, and went to uni. It was the only way. I didn't want to go to uni. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a seller. I don't need uni. That's what I was thinking. I can sell products. I want to grow a business. But I needed to go to uni because it was the only way out. Getting your student loan and living out of the.
Where did you go? Which uni?
I went to Manchester.
Okay, so you went to Manchester. Okay.
Yeah. I went to Manchester.
New environment. How is it?
New environment. It was good. Loved it. International students. I'm around people from China and Middle East. It was good. I went to study business and economics.
Perfect. Yeah.
Economics, again, like I've got my qualifications, but again, uni was another level, right? It was hard. So
Uni's hard.
Yeah. I'll never forget the first day I went into lecture. The teacher's talking about equilibrium and all this stuff for economics. I was like, okay, I think I picked the wrong subjects. Like this is too much. But yeah, I went there. I changed my course to just then business and marketing. But again, I still carried on my entrepreneurial journey over there, but this time I'm doing events. So I'm doing like uni events, parties and stuff like that. I got into I met a guy called Owen up there who had his own events company, so we partnered.
Nice.
Because I got at this point, I've got the gift of the gab. Like I can speak to anybody.
Yeah.
So I was doing well over there, and I was using my student loan money to just live and try to survive. And I just felt so good because I'm away from everything. It was like a fresh start, man. Honestly, it was like everything was off my shoulders. And in that time when I left, I had friends, they went to jail for long periods of time, being involved in things like the riots and stuff like that. People around me, we had the Birmingham riots back in a while
and
ago.
you can always look back at that and see that could have been my path. In fact, that was your path.
That could have been. But then this is what I'm saying.
You changed it.
You've got to understand, right? Like things don't happen to you, they happen for you, right? When you go through times of hardship, times of loss or grief, like I'm telling you, you just change the frame. See it from the other side. How is this serving me? The quality of questions you ask yourself will determine the quality of your life and your results. When you're going through something hard, instead of focusing on the negative, because where your focus goes, your energy goes, right? Where instead of focusing on that, change the frame and go from the other side and say, okay, how is this serving me? Asking a question like that in a hard time completely changes the paradigm.
I always think that life, this is the mindset I try and live by this, that life will always teach you the lessons you need to learn. So that's why I say when you were resisting and you were like being very, even though you were in this bad situation, you were still resisting. That's just the more resistance you were showing, the more life was going, you really need to learn this lesson,
100%. 100%.
Learn it, because it will keep happening to you. Yeah. And those guys that were stuck in that jail, they weren't learning from that lesson. Life was presenting them with what they need to learn, and they still weren't learning. So not everyone makes the decision to learn.
Yeah, not everybody makes the decision to learn. But whilst I was there in university with this whole fresh start, I'm thinking, well, actually, and then when I'm seeing like my friends go to jail and stuff like that, don't get me wrong, I've seen a few of them have come out and they've done good now, so they've rehabilitated and they've came out and done well. But at that time, I'm thinking, imagine them guys didn't come to my home and try to attack my home and make me and my auntie scared. If that didn't happen, I would have still been there. Okay. So it could have been worse, right? So you've got to understand, things happen for a reason. Divine intervention, divine timing, and believe in it fully, right? Things happen. You have to just frame your mind and ask the question, how is this serving me right now? And if you can ask that in times of hardship, you'll have a better result out of it. You'll be able to use it as transformation rather than a tool that can bring you down. It's not easy. And I'm not saying it's easy for anyone, but it's definitely an important way.
Yeah. So you've made the decision to come out of there. You're in Manchester, and you're at the university, and you're doing well. And then what happens?
I didn't pass university. I didn't pass. Well, I didn't. But I came out the second year. Right.
Okay.
I'm in a business of marketing, and I at this point I've knocked doors, hundreds of doors. I've sold on eBay. I've made money like off my own back. I've read every single book you could think of.
Yeah.
I'm more qualified than these teachers that are trying to teach me, these lecturers. I went to my lecturer and I said, "Okay, so do you have a business?" No. Okay, so you're teaching me business and marketing right now. You don't have a business. He said no. I said, "Okay, that makes sense." But obviously sarcastically, right? So then I walked out. Then in my other class, I asked the teacher, "Okay, so what sales have you done? Are you not doing sales? Or are we going to learn sales? Are you going to teach us like how to sell or anything like that?" No, we don't teach sales here. So obviously I've had experience on the past. This ain't making no sense to me right now, right? Okay. So then I left. I was like, this is sent for me. Like this sent for me.
So what'd you do next then?
So then I came back to Birmingham, and then I was just like, okay. My mum had a home, my family home. It was rented at the time. So I came back to Birmingham after a few years. I mean, I decided, okay, I want to, instead of the hustling type stuff that I'm doing, like buying and selling, I thought to myself, can I start something more, beneficial, with a proper business? And I started a clothing line. At the time, it was a sportswear brand, and I done well. It got to a decent level within the community that I was in, selling it to gyms and having contracts with gyms and stuff like that. But yeah, it was quite kind of short lived, but I learned a lot then. And then I said to myself, do you know what I really want to do? Because I'm at this point, I didn't stop reading. Reading changed my life. I did not stop reading. At this point, I've read hundreds of books, right, on the mind, on business and entrepreneurship, and reading everybody's autobiographies and stuff. And I said to myself, okay, I want to share what I know. Like, I want to speak. And because I always used to listen to Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Mel Robbins, Brene Brown. I'd listen to all these guys, right? And I'm like, I'm sure I can speak and share experiences, my story, my hardship, and what I know. And I said, who could I speak to? Like, who's my audience, right? Like, who do I relate to the most? And for me at that time, it was young people in school system that were the unpolished, the coal, right? That had potential to become that diamond, right? Speak to them and speaking to them. Because actually, if I was in school and I had somebody like me go in,
you would have.
I would have probably fixed up a little. Yeah, I would have listened, right?
Yeah,
I could have changed. And I decided that's what I was going to do. And I started to build workshops and motivational assemblies. I'd build workshops on mindset and purpose and stuff like that, and go into schools and deliver them. And that was where my career just went, up.
Yes, how did it go up?
Because I started to share my story, and schools loved what I was doing, and they could see results in the students. Like, I was shifting their minds, and they would see change in behaviour. Kids that were on the verge of getting excluded, or I'm getting reports saying they've made a massive turnaround. Them kids were just like me. I got excluded though, but I was trying to show these kids this. And if I had got my GCSEs, if I had got, if I had took school seriously at the time, I would have, probably been a lot further where I am now, or I would have achieved what I've achieved now quicker. And these kids were taking me in, they were listening. And I was sharing things like business and how to become an entrepreneur, and the teachers loved it. And I ended up working schools across Birmingham, schools across the UK. I ended up working with thousands of young people. And then
this is necessary,
No, it's necessary.
This is required to talk 100%. To these lost kiddies and to help them. This is 100%. Really needed.
No, it's needed. And what I found, what a lot of the kids had, was a lack of purpose. A lack of, and it's not that they needed to know fully what they wanted, but you need some form of direction of where they may want to go, right? Where their skills. So the skills that I had, with these naughty kids, I had some of these traits that the naughty kids had, That's what I'm saying, that like naughty, but I see them as future leaders because I knew I was one, right? That I used to get labelled everything: the fog, the ringleader, the person that distracts the class clown. That's what the teachers would say to me, right? But I believed in myself, especially when I started to read. And then I said, okay, you know what? So I made like the kids write down all of those traits that the teachers would tell them that, you know, they're too argumentative, and then I'd make them find where that skill is used in other careers and high-paying careers, and that they'd associate their skill to it, and
That's
actually
brilliant,
they would just like reframe it and say, oh, actually, I could be a great debater then, right? And just these little things,
they have some hope, and they have a vision of something different instead of spiraling like all their
instead
mates
of
and everyone in
spiraling.
that neighborhood, that they feel that they have to do these drugs and have these vapes and do all the things that's going on in that environment. Apologies to anyone who likes vapes, but I'm not a fan. I don't think they're good for you.
No.
But you know, like, oh, they smoking it, I'm going to smoke it. Let's all spiral down. But actually, when you see these people that are doing all these other things, and you think, oh, I could do that too.
Yeah.
It's because they might not have that in their home. Their parents might be also really struggling and spiraling.
No, exactly. And
so it's good to...
We have to see where the young people show a bit of motivation, and we have to tie that to if the kids that, you know, for example, if they're not performing how you would like them in their education, it's not. For example, you might have a young person that loves football, is so motivated with his football. He's so motivated with his games. You know, he's always playing them. He's the best gamer. But in school, he might not be showing up, right? So what we tend to do is say, forget the game, right? You need to focus on your school. But actually what we need to do is look at what their values are. Look at their hierarchy of values. If their value is in game, then show them, okay, that's a good, I love what you're doing there. Like, let's look at a career for that then. So what careers can you have that's involved? Oh, you can become a game designer. You can become, I don't know, like create a gaming community. There's all these other ways that you can become a gamer, right? Okay, now what we've got to do is tie that to the school curriculum. So how does English help you become a better game designer? Oh, so you can write code for the games. Okay, so you need to have good English and math skills for that, right? And then what you're doing is you're tying their value to something that they don't enjoy. But then when you tie their values to that becomes more of an enjoyment because they can see where it can lead them. And this is what we're not doing for our young people. So stop telling them, forget the game. Forget Netflix, right? Because he could be the next film director, but he's got to know how to write scripts, right? So tie that to the school curriculum, you know?
So when did you meet King Charles? He was then Prince Charles.
Yeah, he was Prince Charles. So I became an ambassador for the Prince's Trust. You know, they saw my work. They could, you know, I applied for it, to be fair. And it was a young ambassador. So I became a young ambassador, and they would send me to events to speak, share my story, my journey. They gave me a little bit of help in my first business, which was my first legitimate business, like registered business, which was my clothing line. So they gave me a bit of funding for it and stuff like that. It was a little bit of money. I had to pay it back, you know, but it helped, and it gave me a little bit of a mentor and stuff like that at the time. But so they was like, oh, we would love to share your journey. You know, you seem like you've got everything. Like, we want you to share your journey at events. So there was almost kind of like using me in a sense as a fundraising tool, right? Like, because I'd go to big events and speak. But I knew it, I seen it as, okay, if I go to these big events and I speak on stage, then I'm going to get more connections, right? And I've been doing this in schools, but I haven't been doing it on big stages in terms of businesses, right? And I was thinking, but I've added, you know, you have that self-imposter syndrome. Who's going to listen to me on these big stages, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm used to school kids, but I quickly found out the school kids were a lot harder than the business people, right? So when I was on these big stages, they would send me, like, you know, massive events, and I would speak, I would inspire, and the response that I got was just overwhelming, right? Like, I had people reach out to me, like, saying, like, Cordell, your story is incredible, keep going. I'd have people, and then I was just like, okay, maybe I can take public speaking, like, as an actual career and just become an inspirational speaker rather than just in the schools.
Didn't you?
Yeah, I done a TEDx. So my journey, I was speaking for the Prince's Trust, building my connections, building my personal brand in a sense. Like, wasn't intending to, but, you know, I'm speaking at, you know, Facebook and, you know, 10 Downing Street and all these places, right? And I became quite a prominent figure because I was raising them a lot of money, number one. And number two, I was a great communicator at the time, right? I could communicate. And then I took public speaking serious. And then I started to learn how the art of communication, how to own the stage, how to be more confident and, you know, show leadership qualities. I was reading into that. And then I started to do training and speaking for businesses around mindset. So I'd work with sales teams, help to develop the, you know, winning mindset and stuff like that. And all of these kind of strategies and things that I was learning from all these books that I was reading in my young ages, I just develop into work programs. And I became very successful at doing that. You know, worked for, you know, places like KPMG and, you know, things like that, like massive brands. This is the youngster from, you know, Nechel's Park Road, you know, from Stetford that got kicked out of school, that was told, you know, you're not going to be anything, right? You're excluded. You're not going to make anything of yourself. Yeah. To working at KPMG and, you know, Facebook headquarters and stuff, right?
You're an example of someone that, despite adversity, despite challenges in a really not nice environment, you pulled yourself out. You worked hard on yourself.
Yeah, worked extremely hard on myself, right? And, you know, I know you have an amazing like community of people that watch and, you know, people that work on themselves as well, but just continue, right? And I would say the best investment is you, right? I took every personal development course you can think of. Like I'm very impulsive, right? Like sell me something good that I can learn from, like I'm gonna buy it, right? But I've took all the courses, and then so the build up to me meeting Prince Charles or King Charles, or King now, Prince then, was for my award-winning changemaker, someone that's made impact and worked with hundreds of thousands of young kids. Because my workshops have, at this point, I've worked across the UK. You know, I've developed programs and I've worked and inspired hundreds of thousands of people, right? From stages, from assemblies, from workshops, you know, from one-to-ones, mentoring. So I've done all that work, and but you know, what was so crazy when I got that award, it meant so much to me because not long before that, my mum, this was in the middle of COVID as well, by the way, right? So, you know, COVID was about 3 years or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And then, my mum, she came to visit me from the Caribbean. So she was in the Caribbean and she was seeing all this progress, So my mum was super proud.
Happy with you.
But don't forget, when I left that airport, I said to myself, that's my reason why. So any time there was any sort of like bad thought, I would think, you keep going, you've got to make that woman proud. She took you out of the Caribbean, she made a good choice for you, make that woman proud. And I'd done it, and she was beaming with light every time she heard of a new success or a new achievement, right? So when I got told I was going to go for that award, she was extremely happy, right? She was extremely happy with some of the things that I was doing. But I never got, because of COVID, I didn't get my award for quite a while, right? Because obviously it was an event, and you know all the events were locked down. But in between that time, my mum came to visit me. She came from the Caribbean. She came to visit me and my little brother, because my brother was here now. So my brother, he came over when he was about 15 as well. He lived with me for a while. So my mum came over, and I did tell my mum, I said, Mum, COVID, not too sure. But she was like, Cordell, I haven't seen you in a couple of years now. You know, like I want to see the airports have opened. I just need a break. I just want to come and see you. So I said, all right, cool. So she came. And while she was here, I met her. I'll never forget, I took her to Pizza Express as soon as she came. She loved the pizza, right? We went Pizza Express, we had a good time. She came to my home. You know, I brought a beautiful home out in the countryside at 27 years old, right? For me and my family. That was a massive achievement at the time for me as well. And she came and she just couldn't believe it. She was just like, Cordell, like, wow, like, you know, like, and it was a home that I always envisioned. I had, you know, the spotlights, the court worktops, the tile, like, it was something that I worked hard for, and I was able to achieve, right? And she came, she visited me, and then after that visit, when she came, she caught COVID. She caught COVID, and she died within like 3 weeks, right?
Oh my! So she caught COVID in the UK.
Yeah, she caught COVID while she was here.
Oh no! I'm so sorry. Oh no!
Yeah, it was tough, you know. And
no!
When she caught it, you know, she caught it. She was sick for a while.
But so quick.
Yeah, like literally so quick. She caught it. I remember the first week I was on FaceTime with her while she caught it, and she was like trying to you know, keep herself to herself and stuff like that because she didn't want anyone else to catch her, obviously.
Yeah.
She was isolating. And then I was on FaceTime to her and she was just like, well, this is really feeling like it's really getting to me.
Right.
Like, it's not, yeah. And then she got worse. She got a bit worse. And then she went hospital. And while she went to the hospital, she seemed okay. She got a bit better.
This is all in the UK?
This is all in the UK.
All in the UK,
While
okay.
she's on a holiday.
She's on holiday.
She was meant to be going back.
Literally within that window.
She meant to be going back the next month to the Caribbean.
So it really took her. Like it really.
Yeah. It took.
And the hospital couldn't.
So in the hospital, she seemed to be okay once she got on some oxygen and stuff like that, and she was still FaceTiming me, right? But she wasn't quite happy with like the way that like some of the nurses might have been. She had a few complaints, and then out of nowhere, I never forget, I was driving, you know, and pulled over because you know, the phone kept ringing, and you know, I pulled over because it was the doctors, and they was like, okay, so your mum, she's been on this ventilator for a few weeks, but she's not doing well. Like her lungs are getting worse. We need to put her in, a coma, like pretty much ICU. Like we need to put her to sleep. I phoned my mum because she was, she wasn't in a coma at this point. They wanted me to make this decision. Like they're like, you got to make this decision. Like we can't. We don't know what to do. I phoned my mum and God bless her, man. She literally was like, Cordell, I don't know what to do. Like they're telling me that they want to put me to sleep and they don't know when I'm going to wake up. Like that's what she told me, right? Could you imagine the fear that
Yeah.
Right? There's no one around her. I couldn't even visit her.
Yeah.
I couldn't go to visit her because the hospitals wouldn't allow you to visit them, right?
That's just it's a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot.
It's a lot,
right? And she did. I said, Mum, just wait there. So I tried to phone anyone that had like a medical background, nurses in the family and stuff.
Yeah,
and I'm
find
saying,
out.
I'm like, should I be doing this? Should I tell them? Like, I was so confused because I'll be honest, I'm a conspiracist, right? Like, I don't really know what was going on at that time. Didn't really trust what was going on. We had everyone had some like apprehension towards it, right? Like, what is this, right? And anyone that I knew that went on a ventilator like died, right? Like a lot of people were dying at that time, right? So I was just like, I don't want to do this.
It's a big decision for you.
For me, right?
Over the phone, I didn't want to see her.
Yeah, I didn't want to make this
You're not a
decision.
medically trained individual, and you have to make that.
That's
crazy.
When I said to my mum, "What do you want to do?" She said, "I don't know, but they're telling me if I don't go on this, I could die."
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
This is madness. Like 3 weeks ago, she's at my home. We're chilling. Like I'm making her food. We're having a good time, right?
How is this even happening?
Yeah, it was the worst time ever. And they put her on a ventilator to put her to sleep. I made the decision because my family members were saying, yeah, like that's the only way that we know, right? That we're kind of in a NHS and stuff. So I said yes. They put her to sleep. A couple of weeks went by where they were saying that she's not getting better, and every single night I would speak to the nurse and I'd put the phone to her ear and I'd try to read the affirmations. Like she's not conscious, but I know she could probably hear me still. You know.
Oh, that's unbearably difficult.
It was so difficult.
Your mum. Yeah.
It was so difficult, and they called me in one time, and they told me that that she had passed, right? And when the doctor told me that sitting down, I had my partner there, I had my little brother across from me, and honestly, my heart just broke. Yeah. My heart broke to know that to turn off the...
Sorry.
Yeah, it was hard. And I just went to my brother straight away, man, because like my little brother, like that was her baby, like...
Yeah.
Like,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was her
that's
baby,
her baby,
right? Right.
But do you know why? Like, obviously in hindsight, now what we know, do we know why it was so particularly bad for her? Like, why did she have such a? She
never had no underlying issues. I don't.
Yeah.
She had a little bit of. I think she had a few little bit of blood pressure, but that wasn't.
Did they explain it at all? Did they say maybe it's because of some? So there was no condition.
There was no condition. There wasn't explaining much.
There was no explaining.
It's just COVID. You remember that time, right?
I do remember it.
The news was just saying this person, like every minute there was numbers around the world, like 10,000, 20, 30, 100,000. This person, people were dropping like flies, right? But when I used to watch it, you wouldn't think it's going to come so close to home.
No, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, especially your mum. She came on holiday to the Caribbean.
And at this point,
no conditions.
we was kind of coming.
No reason.
We was coming out to the that opened up the place. People could go out at this point as well, right? So
you
like
feel more
it was
relaxed.
Yeah, people was a little bit. People were still wearing masks and stuff, but yeah, like losing my mum to COVID.
Oh, that's no, that's not that's not right. That's not right.
It was a
terrible.
devastation, and you know, like I could again. I thought to myself in that time, I could be against the hospital and the NHS and the system, but I knew that wasn't going to do anything for me. It's not going to bring my mum back, is it? Right? And, you know, when I buried her and, you know, had the funeral, gave her a nice send-off, it was hard because she was here one moment and she just was gone the next, right? You know, like there was no time to prepare for anything like that. You can't prepare for anything like that.
In the Caribbean, was it bad there as well? Was it going around?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad.
Not as bad as here, but it was there, obviously.
Very minimal though. It wasn't like it wasn't. Luckily, because the island that my mum's from is a small island.
It's a small island.
So
okay,
luckily,
so it was a bit more.
Yeah. Luckily, it wasn't nothing out there.
Shit, man.
But you know, when she passed, I had to do deep reflection, right? And all the personal development, everything that I've learned, I had to lean into. I felt broken, you know. Worst thing that's ever happened to me. I had to lean into everything I knew. So I had to reframe. But that's the only thing that I knew. I had to ask myself the question: how is this serving?
And your why is she's gone. So,
but I used it. Okay, how is this serving me? Why has this happened? You know, because I'm a massive believer in the universal laws, right? And you have the universal law that got me through this was polarity, right? Which means everything is dual in nature. You can't have one without the other. You can't have good without bad. You can't have bad without good, right? You can't have up without down. You can't have down without up. You can't have an inside without an outside, an outside without an inside, right? Everything has its complete polar opposite.
Yeah.
So in that time of devastation, what is the transformation, right? In that time of hardship, what is the equal opposite side of that, right? In that time of being a bad time, what good can I get from this? These were the questions I sat down with myself every day and asked myself.
Strength. That's mental strength, man.
But if
that's
I never done
really good way of.
If I didn't do the personal,
it's grief that you're going through right now.
I'm going through grief.
But it's a raw, you know.
But if I didn't do the personal development all my life, I would have folded.
Yeah. You could have gone back.
I would have folded. I would have just folded. I don't know what I would have done, right? Like, you know, things make people do different things. But I asked myself that question, and actually what came from it is people, when she passed, people's reaching out from students from all over the world. I still get it now. Like, I even got one the other day saying, your mum was like an icon to me. She helped me. But my mum never really bigged herself up. She would always big me up, right? Her sons, she would just big up her sons. She never really so I knew what she was doing, but not at the level. And then that made me think, okay, actually, I'm gonna share her journey, share the truths and the things that she's taught me with the rest of the world, right? And I had more of a mission to continue the legacy, right?
Totally.
And I wrote down on a piece of paper the benefits and the disadvantages. I knew what the disadvantages were, my mum leaving, but what were some of the benefits? She could now see me from above. She missed a lot of my kind of achievements because she was in the Caribbean. So I just thought, now she's got a front row seat, right?
Well, that's what I think. I mean, I don't know, and I don't know what the viewers believe or whatever, but I'm happy to say I believe in heaven, and I've been chilling out and looking down, and having a tea and going, look, this is what's talking to Aleksandra. They're talking about me.
No, that's it.
You know what I mean? Like I believe in heaven.
That's it. And you know, having that frame.
Yeah, you need
completely. I had to frame it, right?
Frame it.
And listen, getting through that, it's still. I'm not gonna just act like I just had this piece of like it still was hard. Don't get me wrong, it still is hard, but I framed it as I'm gonna continue this woman's legacy. She now lives through me, right? I'm just a vessel of her. Yeah. She lives through me now, right?
You've got to give our mums the credits. Like I'm saying, these people sit on the sofas, and I'm like. It's your mum that
gotta give the mums the credit. Gotta give the mums the credit.
Your mum had you. You're the reason why you're like this.
No, 100%.
So that's just what it is.
But what was so crazy in that time of hardship, right? I got a phone call, literally a day or two after I buried my mum, for two things. One was shortlisted for the Pride of Britain, right? So I was shortlisted for the Pride of Britain. There was a few of us. I didn't win it, but I was shortlisted.
Shortlisted
for the Pride of Britain.
Thank you.
Right, that was a big achievement.
Yeah.
And then the second one was, actually, because you got your award from the King and we didn't get to do a ceremony, we're going to do a smaller private ceremony, but it's going to be at St James's Palace in the King's house, pretty much. And we want you to not only get your award from there, we want you to open up the ceremony with a public speech in front of the King and his guests.
Oh,
Mom, thank you.
yeah.
Right, like that was.
She communicated up there. She's like, right.
She done something, right? She done something, and
she did, didn't she? She definitely did.
And it was hard, and standing on the stage.
Yeah, but how did you do it? Yeah.
Standing on the stage, it was tough because I was going through it at the time. But man, what an opportunity, right? And I spoke in front of the King. There was so many important people in that room. There was people from ITV. The next day they got me on ITV to talk about my award on Good Morning Britain, and I had news and newspapers write about me, right? Yeah. Richard Branson sent me a letter of encouragement from Necker Island, right? Like everything just blew. Got the award from the King and for award-winning changemaker, and even the King, when I done that public speech, that opened up the ceremony, when he was giving me my award, he goes, Cordell, he goes, how did you do that? He said, that was magnificent, the way you told your story.
Yes,
he goes, you must have. And then he goes, Toot, let's take a picture now, son. And then, we turned around and we took a picture.
I love
No, he's got a lot of banter.
He's a fabulous person.
He's good. And he's got a lot of banter as well.
And anyone that's being mean about him, stop it.
No, he's good. He's actually
Leave him alone.
He's a genuine person.
He's a genuinely cool guy.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. And, to be awarded as award-winning changemaker, someone, a changemaker, someone that's made impact in thousands of people's lives, right? Because not only that, I was doing charity work as well. So I'll do work in places like Zimbabwe and stuff. Yeah. I'd create fundraising campaigns. We'd invest. We built out a library out there in Zimbabwe, a place called Guto, Zimbabwe. I had a friend at the time that was there. He was working on me with a project. So we was working in places. I had another friend from India, so he'd go to India. We'd set up fundraising campaigns.
Awesome.
We'd sponsor kids in India, in Nepal. We sponsored 40, 50 children. So I was doing that as well. So people saw my work of value and what I was doing and the impact I was making. So that's why I won the award, along with all the stuff I was doing in the schools here in the UK. But that opportunity was amazing. And to go from where I come from, that kid imagine that teacher that when I got back from the Caribbean, I tried to get back into my school, because I came back just at the end of year 11. Don't forget, I left with no GCSEs. I had to get my GCSEs later on in college. But, the teacher said, no, we're not allowing you to go back into our school. They told the person that was contacting the school for me at the time, which was my cousin, that, no, he's a ringleader and, he's kind of like a thug. Yeah. Like he was a thug when he was there. That's what they labelled me, right? To now, 10, 15 years later, I'm on the stage in front of the King. So
the King said, let's have a photo.
I think in the words of Conor Ben, if you watched the fight, did you watch the fight?
Yeah, I watched the fight.
In the words of Conor Ben, put that in your pipe and smoke it, right?
Yeah,
and that's how I felt. Like that award was like, okay, I've done it. Like,
By the way, on the Conor Ben fight, I can't believe that. I mean, what strikes me is to come back from, again, losing, because he had lost before the first time against Eubank. He got beaten up. It was a difficult fight. I mean, I know he showed some signs of promise, but he got beaten up. He lost.
Yeah, he lost.
You have to change that mindset. To come back and then beat the one that beat you.
Yeah.
That's something.
Well, that's it, right? Like life might knock you down 9 times. You've got to get up 10. You got to get up for the 10th time. You got to keep going, right? Like when life knocks you down, make sure you land on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up. But it's your reasons why that will get you back up, and that's why I say have a strong reason why.
Yeah, and have the training too, because there was also, I don't know if you watched the post-fight interview, and he said that he had these moments during the fight where he was getting quite fired up and angry, and he was almost wanting to go to his old ways of I'm just gonna like that sort of, I'm just gonna beat him up versus I'm gonna outbox the guy, and this is what you mean, these are the things you have to do, hook and all that stuff. And he had to like work on himself and control.
Yeah, control that. You have to be
urge
disciplined.
to not be, because then all that training would have gone, and the people that helped him, he was thinking, I'm going to let them all down if I go and be.
Well, that's it. You've got to stay disciplined, right? It's an important part of the process, and yeah, that fight was amazing, and yeah, you can learn lessons in every way. They're both amazing fighters. Have put on two iconic events, and yeah, we definitely need the third. It's such a legacy.
Yeah, we do. I don't know if they'll do it.
Their dad's amazing, right? So yeah,
the dad's also arguing now. The Conor Benn's dad is angry with senior because of the way that he was dancing, and then he tried to shake his hand after. But anyway, that's another podcast.
I guarantee there'll be some sort of Netflix deal between them both, they'll do like an expedition, right, from some old time sake, or get paid 50 million each. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's crazy. But yeah, that was kind of the journey, and now. I'm still building, I'm still growing, I'm still developing, working on some important projects, some good projects. I also do coaching, and I help professionals dominate the stage and share their truth and their stories. I help people share their stories with the world. I've got a mission that I want to help as many people tell their authentic story to the world, because that's what built me. Right, getting letters from Richard Branson and getting, newspaper articles where Idris Elba has said, an inspiring person that I look at these days is Cordell Jeffers, like from Idris Elba. Mental, right?
Yeah.
Lionel Richie. I got interviewed by Lionel Richie. I was actually it was online, but for a charity event. Yeah, Lionel Richie interviewed me. Like, come on. That was easy, like Sunday morning.
Yeah, well, you are an inspiration to others, and to keep doing the work, because we need it.
Yeah.
This country needs it. Yes, other places, but UK, British schools, this area down there, the kids need it. They need someone to look up to, and they need to be dragged out of whatever it is, the pits and the mindset, the wrong mindset, out of that mindset and into a new mindset.
Yeah, that's it.
And do good things, and there's another way to live. So keep doing what you're doing.
No, thank you. And like, if anybody looks at this journey and listens to this story, the main thing is, right, like, keep going, keep pushing, use pain as a driving force, turn your pain into power, right? And another thing is live with purpose, right? Find your purpose. People always say, how do you do that? Just ask yourself the questions. The quality of your questions that you ask yourself will determine your results in life. Ask yourself, what am I good at? Where does my energy go? What lights me up inside? Find that thing. Once you find it, it's already within you. Like, purpose isn't an external thing. You don't need to go out there to find it. It's within already. Just ask yourself the questions to bring that to your conscious mind. And once you find that, think as many ways you can monetize it, package that purpose up, and go out to the world and find your tribe and serve them with it. Because that is what's going to push you, right? Like, don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait till next week. I think humans have this, we kind of have this foolish forgetfulness of our morality. Life isn't going to keep going. We run a time limit, right? Every single minute and moment that goes past is closer.
Aging.
We're aging, right? And the reality is, this is borrowed time. Every day you're closer to your demise. So take action now. It's so important. Live with purpose, keep going, and use pain. Anything that goes, don't let it hinder you and stop you. Change the frame, ask the question, how can it serve you, and keep pushing forth.
And keep pushing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.